Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. What do you do when your fiancée is out here sweeping right like she's still single? Well, you set the trap, bait the hook, and reel in a cheater. Today on rSpace, sometimes you have to go full National Geographic. Found fiancée's secret Tinder account, so I catfished her, exposed her, and called off the wedding. It might sound childish, but I've never understood why people cheat. Why would you promise to spend your life with someone and then betray them? I think what really hurt about my own situation was that I wasn't even married yet. We were just a few months out from the wedding. I suppose in some ways that makes it a blessing in disguise. You could say I got lucky and dodged the bullet early. My fiancée, Jane, 25 female, and I, 26 male, have been planning our wedding for a year now. We got engaged while she was still in college, and the plan was for her to graduate before we got married. We'd been waiting for so long that we practically started planning the wedding the moment the graduation ceremony was over. We'd booked the venue, told everyone to save the date, and even had a photo shoot done. We'd spent a lot of time and money getting ready for the big day, and it felt like it couldn't be here soon enough. I was nervous, but I was also genuinely excited. I thought Jane was too, but clearly I was wrong. I found out about it when a friend, Justin, invited me out for drinks. He was supposed to be one of my groomsmen, and I thought he just wanted to hang out before I got married. It turned out that he had some pretty bad news, and he thought I'd take it better if I were a little buzzed first. I wish I could say he was right, but some news is so bad that it'll kill even the strongest buzz. He danced around the topic for a while until it became obvious to me that he had something he was trying to avoid saying. I pressed him to tell me what was on his mind. He caved and said he was sorry, but he was pretty sure that Jane was on Tinder. I scoffed and laughed a bit. She didn't have a Tinder account. We met at the library in college, and on one of our first dates, she told me that she hated dating apps. I'd been talking about how I had no luck with them, and she had replied that she'd never even opened an account in one. I told Justin that it couldn't be her. Maybe it was someone who just looked like her. Justin didn't say anything. He just pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots he'd taken of her profile. I took the phone from him and studied the pictures closely. All the info matched up perfectly with hers. It was under a fake name, Trina, but there was no denying the pictures. I could recognize her face in the dark, and that was undoubtedly her photo on the profile. I immediately went into denial. Looking back, it's a little sad, but I don't think there's anything else I could have done. I loved her and trusted her completely. I was about to marry this woman. There's no way I would believe that she had a Tinder account. I told Justin that it was probably a catfish account. Maybe someone had taken her pictures off her social media. Justin shook his head and said he'd thought of that. He told me that he wanted to be completely sure before he told me about this, so he'd gone through all her social media posts to see if the pictures matched up with the photos on her profile. 2 of the pictures on the profile couldn't be found on any of her accounts. That meant the pictures had to have come from her camera roll. I sat there looking at the photos that Justin had indicated. I had a feeling he was right. I could recognize most of the other photos from her profile, but those 2 were completely new to me. I was sure I'd never seen them before. That was when the last shreds of denial started to fade away. Suddenly, it was becoming very real to me, and I started to feel sick. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I'd woken up that morning looking forward to getting married to the love of my life, and now I had no clue what was going to happen to me. If this was real, then our relationship was done. Justin apologized and said that he wasn't trying to destroy my relationship, but he thought I needed to know, especially with my wedding coming up. He said he'd be a crappy friend if he let me get married without having all the information I needed to know. I knew he was right. I told him I wasn't mad at him, I was just processing. I thanked him for letting me know. I didn't sleep much that night. I was still trying to turn the information over my head, trying to find some crack or angle where the facts could be interpreted in another way. I was desperately trying to convince myself that it was a catfish, but I couldn't. It was hard to take my mind off what she could have done. She was an attractive woman, so I found it hard to believe she couldn't have gotten any matches. Was she talking to other guys? Was that all she was doing? The thought of her sleeping with someone else just made me angry. I knew I needed to get to the bottom of this, or I'd drive myself crazy overthinking it. Before we started dating, she told me that she'd never used a dating app, so there was no way this was an old account. Even if she'd been lying and this was an account from before we got together, then why would she use a fake name? No matter how I looked at it, Trina had to be Jane. I called Justin and told him about my thought process. He said he was sorry and that he wished he was wrong about her. Then he asked what I planned to do. I told him that I was going to confront her about it, but he advised me not to. He said he'd heard stories of women being caught with Tinder accounts while they were in relationships, and they always denied everything. Sometimes they said it was an old account, and some of them even said they were on the app looking for friendship. I scoffed. People only looked for one thing on dating apps, but I didn't doubt the lengths cheaters would go to cover up their actions. Now I'm left wondering what's going to happen to my relationship. We already have a wedding being planned. I can't even look at Jane without thinking of her messaging other guys or even cheating on me. I know this is hardly a unique experience, so I'm wondering how other people handled this sort of situation. It's totally normal that your first instinct was denial. When you love someone that deeply and are that invested in a future with them, your brain almost refuses to believe that they could hurt you like that. You weren't naive, you just trusted her. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you decide to talk to her, just make sure you've got your head on straight and you're calm. Whether she admits to it or not, you've already got your answer. Update 1. I'm the guy who found out that his fiancée was on Tinder just a few months out from the wedding, and I'm back with an update. I was in heavy denial at the time and came here looking for advice. It was brutal, but you guys mostly set me straight. All the evidence pointed to the account being hers, but I refused to see it. Some of you mentioned going through her phone. I tried that, and I didn't find anything. She didn't have Tinder installed. At the time, I didn't know you could use Tinder from the website, so I would have checked the browser on her phone or her laptop. In the end, Justin suggested the same thing that a lot of you mentioned. We needed to catfish her and catch her in the act. I told him I wasn't sure how I'd do that, and he offered to help. He said he had a friend who had been through something like this when he was in college, and they catfished the girl and caught her planning a date with the imaginary man. I went for it, mainly because I was still a little delusional. I was holding on to the slightest hope that this was all a misunderstanding somehow. I was hoping we'd find out that it was just a scammer or some bot that tried to get you to click on suspicious links. This was probably the first time someone had ever wanted that, but anything was better than finding out your fiancé was cheating on you. Justin and I met up to set up this catfish account together. I let him handle most of the work, since he was more familiar with dating apps than I was. I hadn't been on one in years, after all. I provided input for the profile, though. I knew Jane better than anyone, so I helped fill out the profile with information that I knew would appeal to her. We decided we'd probably have better results going with someone who looked a bit like me. Someone with long hair, a beard, glasses, and who goes to the gym. Justin suggested that we generate the picture of our guy with AI, but I turned that down. She was a bit too savvy to fall for AI-generated images. As shady as it was, we had better chances of using some dude's real pictures. It was highly unlikely that she would try to reverse image search, so we did a bit of searching to find our guy. Eventually, we went with an amateur Brazilian model. He looked a lot like me, but he was a lot more good-looking. He kind of looked like the premium version of me. Usually, it would have made me feel a bit insecure, but I had more important things to worry about. When the account was ready, we set the radius low and started swiping. Despite that, we still had a lot of profiles to go through. We live in a pretty dense city, so it made sense that there were a lot of people on Tinder there. It took about 20 minutes for Trina to pop up, and we swiped right on her immediately. Now we just needed to wait for a match. Getting our first match took longer than I remembered. Matches didn't start coming in until the next day, and then they poured in. Our friend Diego was very popular. I was surprised at how easy it was to catfish people. Trina's match came in 2 days later. Justin and I started chatting with her, and my heart fell when she replied. The "hi" with 3 eyes was exactly how she said hi to me when we chatted. I already knew this was her. I felt like stopping the whole act, but Justin encouraged me to pull through. If we didn't come to her, she'd try to deny everything. So over the next few days, we set up a date with her. It was hard pretending everything was normal in the meantime. Diego flirted with her, and Trina flirted back just as hard. I could recognize a lot of what she said as things Jane would say. By that point, there was no doubt in my mind. We were talking to Jane. I was convinced it was her. All we had to do now was catch her. On the day of the date, Justin and I took his car and waited in the parking lot just outside the plaza where they were supposed to meet. About 10 minutes late, Jane walked in and took a seat at an outside table of a coffee shop. I felt my heart sink. Justin patted my shoulder. He pulled out his phone and said we needed to get her before she decided to leave. We were half walking and half jogging to where she was sitting, and it felt like the longest walk of my life. I couldn't believe I was about to confront the woman I loved for coming to meet another man. I didn't take any pleasure in it. If anything, I was miserable. When Jane saw us, she jumped to her feet. She recovered quickly and asked what we were doing there. Justin let me do the talking. He was busy using my phone to record everything. I told her we knew about her Tinder account and that she was there to meet with Diego. Her reaction gave it away. She stiffened up and gasped when she heard that. She started claiming that she was just there to meet with a friend, but tears were already forming in her eyes, and her voice was shaking. She knew she was in trouble, but she didn't know the whole truth yet. She kept trying to lie. She said she hadn't downloaded Tinder to cheat. Just like I suspected, she claimed she'd downloaded to meet people and make friends. It was such a weak excuse. I'd heard it before, and it always baffled me. She kept going on and rambling about how female friends couldn't be trusted, and she'd always wanted to make more guy friends. I told her to stop. There was no point wasting her time lying when I already knew what she'd been texting Diego, and it wasn't very friendly. She looked confused, so I told her the truth. There was no Diego. He was an account that Justin and I had made to catch her. Her whole body sagged, and I thought she was about to faint. Instead, she just sat heavily into her chair and said, "Oh." I watched her, waiting for her to say something, but she just stared at the table. After a few minutes of silence, I noticed she was silently crying. When she finally spoke, she said she was sorry, and it was just for fun. She wasn't planning on actually doing anything. I said I didn't believe her, but it didn't matter either way. She'd been flirting pretty intensely and talking about what she wanted to do to him when they met. That didn't sound like she was just joking around. I said she'd probably met up with multiple guys before this, and I just didn't know about them. She hesitated before she denied it, and I felt like that was confirmation enough. This wasn't her first time. Justin was still recording everything. Jane was still silently crying, and I was oddly calm. I was angry and hurt, but I was calm too. I guess I'd had enough time to come to terms with what was going on. Jane's voice was small when she asked me what was going to happen to us. I sat down and said there was only one way things could go from here. She needed to tell her family and her guests that the wedding was off, and why it was off. That was when the tears really started flowing. She said she didn't want to call it off because she still loved me. That was too bad because I didn't love her anymore. I sat there looking away while she put her head down and sobbed. When she showed no signs of letting up, I kept talking. I told her that she had to let people know what was going on, or I would do it myself. And I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I wouldn't let people think this was a mutual decision. She started begging me between sobs. She repeated that this was the first time she'd done it, and that she really hadn't planned on doing anything. I told her that emotional cheating was still cheating. Besides, you don't need to meet up with someone you've been flirting with without expecting something to happen. I stood up and told Justin we were leaving. By that point, people were watching us, but I didn't care. I'd been dealing with paranoia and sleepless nights for the past few nights. She could handle a few stares. She called me later and asked me if I was serious about calling off the wedding. I told her I was. She tried to convince me not to go through with it, but I just told her to let people know the wedding was off, or I'd do it myself, and I would make sure to show everyone her Tinder profile along with all of her conversations with Diego. I'm still waiting to see how she'll respond to my ultimatum, but I just wanted to drop this update here. I'll probably come back with an update in a day or two when I see how she responds. Update 2. Hopefully this is the final update in the Tinder Fiancée saga. I gave her the chance to let people know that the wedding was off on her own terms, but she refused. She claimed she was holding out hope that I'd have a change of heart and the two of us could talk about what happened. What happened was that she was trying to sleep with someone I had catfished her with. There was no moving on from that. And yeah, some commenters said it was a scummy move for me to catfish her. Personally, I think it was a scummier move for her to hide a Tinder account and chat up other guys. But what do I know? Anyway, when it became clear that she wasn't going to make the announcement, I pulled the trigger and did it for her. I wrote up a group message and sent it to everyone who had been invited. I kept it blunt and neutral, but I didn't shy away from the truth. I simply announced that I appreciated everyone's support in our upcoming wedding, but unfortunately the wedding has to be called off due to Jane's infidelity. I mentioned her hidden Tinder account and included screenshots of her profile and censored versions of the messages she had sent to Diego. It blew up quickly. I got more messages than I was ready to deal with. I replied to most of the important ones and tried to lay out the facts for them. My parents were disappointed in Jane. They both adored her, especially my mom. Jane's parents were horrified. Her dad was particularly annoyed. He was mad at Jane for what she did, but he also disapproved of me making a public spectacle out of her. I understood his feelings, but I didn't share them. I just told him that I'd given her a chance to handle things her way. She refused, so now I was doing it my way. She wasn't the only one who didn't like the way I handled things. I got a lot of messages from her friends insulting me for putting her on blast like that. None of them even acknowledged the fact that she cheated. I wasn't surprised. Women stick up for each other when it comes to infidelity. I wouldn't be surprised if one of her friends had put her up to it. Jane's reaction was exactly what I expected. She was crying when she called me, but she was also angry. She asked why I had to humiliate her like that. I told her the same thing I told her dad. I'd given her the chance to choose how to let people know herself. She forced my hand by holding on to the fantasy that I would talk things out with her and get married to her. I told her I'd be around to drop off some of her stuff, and I'd pick up the things I had at her place. We didn't live together full time, but she had a key to my place. I'd already changed the locks. She still tried to apologize when I went to give her the stuff back, but I ignored her. Frankly, I was surprised she was still crying. I would have thought she'd hate me after what I did. I haven't heard from her since then, though I still get some calls from her parents and her friends. From what they tell me, it seems like she's a mess. She spends a lot of time crying and has moved back in with her parents for a bit. Her dad even called me once to ask me to forgive her. I told him gently that I couldn't trust her, and there was no chance of it. Maybe one day she'd learn to be faithful, and she could be happy with another man. But it wouldn't be me. As for me, I'm healing. I trusted Jane more than anyone in the world, and she still turned out to be a cheater. It makes me feel like you can never know someone as much as you think you do. Maybe someday in the future my feelings will change, but I feel like I'm off relationships for now. At least, marriage isn't in my mind for now. I mean, how am I supposed to trust another woman after that? But despite it all, I'm glad that I found this out all in time. It would have been a much more expensive mistake if we'd gotten married and had kids before I found out who she was. It was much easier to kick a cheating fiancé to the curb, and honestly, good riddance. Emotional cheating is real cheating, and meeting up after flirting like that isn't innocent at all. You gave her chances to be honest and take responsibility, and when she refused, you did what you had to do. Calling off the wedding was the best decision you could have made. You did right by being upfront with everyone. It's better to be honest than let rumors and lies spread. You took control of the narrative. If you found out your partner was secretly on a dating app, would you confront them directly, or would you set a trap for them first to catch them in the act? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.